The following video has met only the highest standards of mediocrity and has earned the Manashadow seal of approval.
I grew up with the Super Nintendo. I got one when I was about 5 years old and it consumed my every waking moment. There's a special kind of nostalgia that I have for the SNES. It takes me back to that childhood time when life was simple. A time when the greatest weekend excitement consisted of walking down to the local video game store with your cousin or your best friend and renting a video game. Warm summer nights spent with the lights off and a box fan in the window, the white noise gently drowning out everything but the game in front of you. Fast forward to the present day, and one of my favorite kind of videos on YouTube is a top 10 SNES list, or a top 10 video game list of any kind, really. Sure, these are typically considered cliché and unoriginal by many, but I think they're really interesting. There are over 700 games released for the SNES over its 9 to 13 year lifespan, depending on how you measure it. And although there are some major hard hitters that you're almost guaranteed to see on every list, everyone has a few in there that raise an eyebrow and make you think, really? That one? That's your favorite? Games are a lot like art, and it's not uncommon to find someone who's willing to overpraise or over-criticize a game that we might feel very differently about. And it's for this reason that I've decided to do a top 20 games list. When we get to the top 5, you're likely to see the usual suspects, so just be aware of that. But even then, it's always fun to see what someone has at the number 1 spot on their list, and to hear why. So let's get this train wreck a-rolling, lay down some disclaimers. First off, I want to say that this list is subjective. Now, what that means is that just because one game on the list is higher than another game doesn't mean that I think Game 1 is better than Game 2 in terms of if it's well done or if it's just a technically better game. It simply means that I either played it more or I enjoyed it more than the games listed below it. Many of the games that were considered to definitely not be classics will outrank games that are classics on this list. And that doesn't mean that I think they were better, just I liked them or I played them more when I was a kid. Secondly, this list was hard. It's not easy to place one game over another because you love them for different reasons. One game I love because I played it a ton, another game I love because I'd be happy to pick it up again anytime, and a third one because I've got great memories playing it with another person. Sometimes you just have to make a choice, and sometimes that choice doesn't feel much better than a coin flip. You just have to feel it out. Third, I don't have a capture card, so I'm going to resort to emulation to get footage for most of these games, and for one or two of them, emulations don't really cooperate, so if you get a clip or two of my TV screen, that's why. Fourth and finally, my damn camera was on while I was recording these, so except in the one case that I re-recorded some footage to show something that camera directly covered, we're all going to have to deal with the serval in the bottom right. I recorded about 20 minutes of footage for each game, and 20 times 20, yeah, I'm not really going to do that again. So let's get down to clown. Number 20, Faceball 2000. I want to be clear about this game. It's not good. It just isn't a good game. The controls suck, the graphics are bland, and it gets laggy as hell. But I loved it. It was one of my first console FPSs, and I remember playing it a lot when I was sick. The game was simple and straightforward, and I thought that the kill screen was probably the funniest thing I'd ever heard on a SNES at that time.
Have a nice day. Have a nice day.
I never could get very far in this game. Although each enemy does have its own AI pattern, they were all cheap as hell, and pretty soon I'd get upset and rage quit the game. Before that moment, however, this game's maze-based shooter action was just the closest thing I had to laser tag without begging my parents to drive me down to Laser Quest. Number 19, FZero. I'm gonna level with you guys. This is on here for its background imagery and music. Sure, it's an iconic game and it's an instant classic, but I never really got a lot out of this one. I never really liked sports games, and as unique as FZero is, it is a racing game, and that to me qualifies it as a sports game. Despite that fact, The music and sci-fi aesthetic was enough to make me want to play it. Also, watching someone else lose control of their car, bounce into lethal rails, and eventually explode was beyond funny. I had a lot of good memories, hanging out with my cousins Abram and Logan, playing this game at their house, bullcrapping late on a Saturday night. Number 18. The Twisted Tales of SpikeMukbang. Here's one you might actually not be familiar with. Pretty sure it was under the Kid Dracula series in Japan. SpikeMukbang was an action-adventure game where you would spin your cape and throw your hat to fight enemies. As the game progressed, you'd get more powerful hats that could either zigzag across the screen or even hunt enemies down. The coolest part was definitely the card system. At the bottom of the screen, you could see the cards that Spike was carrying, and you could rifle through them with L and R. These were consumable items that would do anything from turn you invisible, summon a cloud of bats to attack your enemies, or even damage all the enemies on the screen. As we'll see in one of the later games, I loved gambling games as a kid, and this was one of the funnest features of SpikeMukbang. At major towns, there would be a vending machine that you could put money into and get cards in return. I didn't know it at the time, but this is a decidedly Japanese theme. Gamble collecting, kind of like Gachapon. Don't get me wrong, this game has its fair share of issues. The text scrolls slower than dirt, the tutorial is far too long and boring, and the plot is bland and just kind of drops you in without any reason to care. But the enemies are beyond cute, the animation style is fun and colorful, and the gameplay is engaging enough. I rented this one more than once, and even though I hit a wall when it got too hard, I always enjoyed playing it. It had a neat and simple level up system, and you could go to the select screen and figure out what all the cards do that you were carrying. So there really wasn't a gamble on what the card was going to do. Told you in plain English. Plus that jazzy boss music though. Number 17. Mario is Missing. This game is kind of a strange breed. Sure, it's your basic edutainment fanfare, but it really confused me as a kid. It started with a little cutscene where Mario dies, apparently. I love Luigi and Yoshi's response to this too, or more accurately, their lack thereof. They're just like, yeah, okay, whatever. There was a lot to this game. A grid to store info on, a city map, a world map even, and it was the real world too. That was the strangest thing. You could actually move Yoshi around in the real world on the continents. I thought that was just the strangest and coolest thing as a kid. And it was the first game that my boy Luigi ever starred front and center in. This game involves learning about important places or things, and then answering questions about them to progress. I never really enjoyed this game until my sister Brandy sat down with me one day to play it. I remember feeling frustrated, and she encouraged me to slow down and, actually read what was being placed in front of me. And with her help, I actually learned how to play the game. It may not sound like much, but it's one of my favorite memories of my oldest sister, and the game holds a special place in my heart because it was a video game that we played together. Still, it wasn't my favorite, but it was different. And when I was tired and didn't feel up to tryharding some action-packed craziness, Mario is Missing was a great, chill game. Didn't learn shit though. Number 16. WWF Royal Rumble. And here's the only other pseudo-sports game on this list. WWF Royal Rumble was a game that could make me pee myself laughing if I was slap happy enough. I'd say it's your standard 16-bit wrestling game, but it had a few features that made it pretty unique to me. The first of which was that you could actually have a Royal Rumble. 6 characters in the ring at the same time, including yourself, with the objective of throwing them out and being the last man standing. This was pretty good for the SNES, considering that there wasn't any slowdown or lag with all this stuff going on. All the animation remained fluid throughout. Every time I pick this one up, I am instantly taken back to sitting on my living room floor with my cousin Jim, up at midnight, slap happy, giggling like an idiot, while I kept choking and eye gouging everyone incessantly. The second best part about this game is knocking out the ref. I mean, doing nothing other than trying to knock out the ref.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Jim would go back and forth between being annoyed and being caught up in my sleep-deprived fits of giggling. Nothing but good memories with this one. It was a legitimately fun game to play, even if I rented it and played it on my own. Number 15, Vegas Stakes. I'm not sure why, but like I said in one of the earlier entries, I loved gambling as a kid. Just make-believe digital gambling. I just had this obsession with it. I don't understand why. I also don't remember when I got this game, but I do remember this being one of my favorite I'm sick as crap and I don't feel like I want to do anything right now games. But unlike other casino games around this time, because I had a few on the PC too, Vegas Stakes had a few unique things going for it. First off, you arrive in Vegas with 4 other friends that you could potentially go play craps, poker, slots, roulette, or blackjack with. I mean, their personalities weren't super different, but they made an interesting, chosen computerized tutorial. Also, you get to name yourself, and you get to make this little pen write ridiculous crap on this piece of paper. I never got tired of that. Secondly, you have your choice of 5 casinos to go to, with the 5th casino being inaccessible until you make that cash money, son. Each of these places have their own backgrounds and their own music. Now, the music loops are short, but at lower volumes, they set a pretty good scene. Finally, instead of walking around with a character like most games of that time, you navigate through menus. Now, some might say this is a minus, but I think it affords the game several images that really uniquely blur the line between an actual photo and a low-res digitized painting. I always thought these were kind of cool, you know, sitting in the room late at night with these sort of trippy, pseudo-realistic images, bit crushed coming out of your 16-bit system. It was just really cool to me. There was always something about it that really set a relaxing atmosphere to lose fake money with. Plus, the game has several save slots, and apparently I thought it was hilarious to have NPCs refer to me as Mr. Beavis, money, 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 etc. Number 14, Mega Man X. So here's the first major classic on my list, unless you're counting FZero. I'm not sure if I owned this one as a kid or not, but I do remember playing it a decent amount. I loved the fact that you could tackle the stages in any order you wanted, but that certain bosses were weak to certain weapons, so it kind of behooved you to pay attention to what you were picking first. You know, and we all had our own playground knowledge as to the correct way, you know, to go about doing that. But the smooth character animation and the rockin' music were something I still don't get tired of to this day, and as a fairly attention-deficit child, the fast-paced action definitely held my interest. But seeing as this game is so popular, I feel I have more to say about why it's not higher on my list. Mega Man X, for me, is not a particularly easy game. I mean, it has depth and riches to it, with hidden heart tanks and upgrades, but that required a lot of patience and trying things over and over again, and I just didn't dig that in a game back then. I didn't really find scouring a level for things to get and then trying a bunch of stuff over and over to reach it to be a pleasant experience. I still really don't, typically. I mean, this is a great game, and I enjoyed it, but I just don't enjoy it enough to get it higher on this list. Number 13, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. This nasty business is what I have, since getting my SNES Classic about a year or two ago, referred to as the original Dark Souls of the 16-bit era. Super Ghouls and Ghosts is a punishing game. I seriously thought about just putting together a montage of our bearded hero here turning into a pile of bones over and over and being like, yeah, that's it. That's the game. You need more? You need more than that? You call Capcom. That's the game. I've heard a lot of games referred to as horror themed on the SNES, but this game nails those visuals while properly portraying a non-gory gameplay or aesthetic. Graveyards, haunted ships, fleshy and bloated spike sacks. Pretty metal stuff for Nintendo when you think about it. I have my old SNES controller, and it actually physically still has the bite marks on it that I put on it out of frustration, and I'm pretty sure a good chunk of them are from this game. It is unforgiving at best, and downright cheap, unfair bullcrap at worst. I've never beaten this game, and I feel no shame admitting that. Any game that asks you to beat it twice is total BS in my opinion. But, nonetheless, I allowed this game to beat the dog vomit out of me again and again. And just like any other abusive relationship, I just keep coming back to it. It's a challenge for challenge's sake. I even grab the weapons no one wants to see what I can do with them. I mean, I'll grab the bow, you're never supposed to do that. I'll grab the sickle once in a while, you're never supposed to do that. And it always ends with, oh god, why did I grab that? But it's a fun masochism in the end, really. You can pick this game up and play it anytime knowing full well that you're not going to be alive that long anyway. Number 12. Zombies Ate My Neighbors. Here's the second quote-unquote horror game on the list that does a fantastic job of blending cartoony and unsettling. I never had Zombies Ate My Neighbors as a kid, but I'm pretty sure that my cousin did, because I distinctly remember playing this with my cousin, James, and we had a ball with it. The environment changes every couple of levels and it's kept fresh. The music is a throwback to old horror movies and it gets stuck in your head in a good way. And the number of weapons that you can get that are legitimately unique and different from the rest of the weapons is pretty staggering for an SNES game. Every time I start this game up, I can hear James's voice in my head telling me, get the survivors off the screen, get the survivors off the screen. They can't be killed if they're not on the screen. Now, I'm actually not sure if that's entirely true at this point while I was playing through, but that's still the way I play this game to this day, which I think is kind of funny. This game can also be pretty unforgiving, with wonky collision detection and unreasonable bosses, but the gameplay itself is just too fun to stay away. The only enemy that really creeped me out as a kid was the possessed dolls in the mall levels. The echoing laughter they make is about as haunting as the SNES gets, in my opinion. Look, I know it's dumb, but my younger self had a real aversion to Chucky, okay? Number 11. Super Metroid. Seriously, what could I say about Super Metroid that hasn't already been said? There's a perfectly good reason why Metroidvania is a widely recognized gameplay style nowadays. But I guess that what drew me into it was watching my cousin Jim play it. I'd bet if he made his own list, this game would be right up there near the top, or at least real close to it. But the different worlds and the plethora of items and weapons really drew me in. I guess this tops the 20 to 11 list because although I didn't play it much when I was a child, I want to play it now. It's one of those games you know you have to go back and complete for yourself, like part of your childhood is missing without experiencing the game firsthand. But, much like JonTron's list, Super Metroid just misses the top 10 spot for me because there are other games that I not only played more, but drew me in more and made a more lasting impact on me. But I understand that this game is probably the most technically impactful game to the gaming community that I have on this list.
Hey everybody, I've been wanting to do this for a really long time. Thank you so much for watching part 1. Part 2, we're going to hammer out 1 through 10. That's going to be my top 10. Might take a week or two to get it out, but I'm committed. Thanks again for watching.